My historical person, I chose to do it over Dorothea Dix. Dorothea Dix was born April 4th, 1802, and she died July 17th, 1887. Dorothea Dix was a mental health advocate. She always stuck up for those who didn't have a voice or those who people didn't want to listen to. She also helped to reform and build better mental health institutions. She was also one of the first people to think and actually build a mental asylum. Her early life. Dorothea was born in Hampton, Maine in 1802. Dorothea lived with her mom, dad, and two siblings. Her dad was a Methodist teacher who traveled around a lot. Her dad struggled with an addiction to alcohol, but that didn't stop him from teaching Dorothea how to read and write. Dorothea's mom struggled with depression and often left Dorothea to take care of the household. At age 12, she moved in with her wealthy grandmother, where she continued her education. Her career. At age 14, she started her own school in her grandmother's house, where she taught young girls in Worcester, Massachusetts. She then made a school in Boston, but her teachings were commonly interrupted by ill spells. Dorothea gave up on her dream of being able to teach due to her ill health. It was thought that Dorothea had spells of depression, which was one of the main reasons she was forced to close down her school. The start of her passion. Her friend suggested she take a trip to Europe that same year. While in Europe, she stayed at William Rathbone's house. While visiting, she met with prisoner reformer Elizabeth Fry and Samuel Tooke, who was the founder of the York Retreat for the Mentally Ill. She returned home after the death of her grandmother, and the inheritance she received was enough for her to support herself and spend her time with the mentally ill. The beginning. Dorothea started teaching Sunday school to the female convicts at East Cambridge Jail. It was here she saw how badly the mentally ill were treated. She knew that this was not right, and people had a right to know what was secretly going on in their backyards. And she felt deep down that if they truly knew what was going on, that they would not be okay with it and would think twice about sending their family, friends, and loved ones there. What she saw. Dorothea saw killers room next to the mentally ill, and they were treated the same even though they were completely different from each other. She also saw how they would treat the mentally ill and took notes over everything she observed. This is what she saw. She saw the use of restraints. A mentally ill person would be tied down and force treated even if they didn't want it. She also saw isolation. Many patients would be put in a dark room all alone for multiple weeks because they thought the illness would spread to other prisoners, infecting them. She also saw the use of electroshock therapy. With this procedure, they would tie the patient down and send electric current to the brain, causing a seizure to occur in the brain. The hope was that the shock would change the brain cells, therefore getting rid of the illness. She also saw the use of ice baths. They thought the shock of the cold stimuli forces the brain to cope with this environmental condition being inflicted on the body, and it diverts the mind from thinking and feeling about depression and anxiety. What did she do? Dix was horrified by how those people were being treated, and she knew she had to make some changes. She challenged that people who suffer with a mental illness can't be cured, but just monitored and supportive care. She made a list of all the things she saw and took it to Congress. They were shocked by her findings, and there was a separate fund set aside to help build an actual mental institution, not just a prison. She carried this over to New York, Rhode Island, and even took it out of the States to England. When she got back home from the war, she continued her movement to help the mentally ill. Old hospitals were redesigned and rededicated according to her ideals, and new hospitals were made strictly for the mentally ill. She felt it was her duty to help get better care for the mentally insane. She made sure that her institutions had doctors that worked specifically in dealing with mental illness, not just prison guards or random doctors working on them that were actually doing more harm than good. Her hospital. Dix founded over 30 hospitals, all dedicated to the mentally ill. Her most famous one was the Dorothea Dix Hospital, but it closed down in 2012 due to lack of funding. The Dorothea Dix Hospital at the max held 2,000 patients. It's turned into a park now and is now open to the public, and you can go take tours and learn about Dorothea Dix and her importance. Her importance, to me at least. Her studies and devotion to the mental illness movement has changed the way we till this day treat the insane. Some consider her to be one of the most underappreciated women in American history. She brought new thoughts and ideas to the mental health world. She also helped open people's eyes to the horrors that were taking place in their own town. She was also able to inform and explain mental illness to normal people who might have had no clue what was even going on. In the end, she later died at the age of 85 in New Jersey. Her most famous quote was, "Man is not made better by being degraded."